What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the podcast, the Chad Townsend Show. Today we're doing something different. It's the Friday Five. Now we're doing the 5 biggest takeaways from the Thursday night game. Now obviously Storm versus Broncos last night, an injury-riddled game for the Broncos. Wow, who would have thought that would have happened for them? 2 halves going down on the exact same play with the exact same injury. The Broncos would later lose Selwyn Cobbo as well to a hamstring. But let's get into it. That is our number one biggest takeaway from this game. The Storm win the game 22-2, but the Broncos lose Adam Reynolds and Ezra Mam, both to hamstring injuries, both on the same play, and they would later lose Selwyn Cobbo as well. But Coach Michael Maguire was quoted in the press conference saying that he had never seen anything like it. Obviously, a runaway try, which Selwyn Cobbo absolutely made the play of the game, chasing back to make that tackle on Xavier Coates. It reminded me of Tommy Dearden, actually, a couple of years ago. Remember that? What a try that was, a try-saving tackle. But yeah, huge effort from Selwyn Cobbo. But yeah, obviously just going to sort of take off and open up, and under probably a little bit of fatigue, Adam Reynolds does a hamstring, Ezra Mam does a hamstring, and then the Broncos, I mean, obviously the scans, I guess we wait to see the scans results for the Broncos on how long they're going to be out for. But when you do something like that where you feel something go, like, it's not a good sign. I'd say it's probably like, I mean, I'm no physio, but I've seen a couple of hamstring injuries in my time. I'd say it was, if I'm guessing, it's probably around 4 to 6. I'm sure they'll probably get the scans and we'll understand over the next couple of days. But that is the number one biggest takeaway for me out of that game. Now, who comes in for the Broncos? I mean, obviously last night, Ben Hunt moved from hooker to halfback, and obviously that's a world-class replacement. We all know what Ben Hunt can do at halfback, and obviously set up, almost set up a nice try at the end there for the Broncos. But his try assist, record or his ability to create for others goes without saying. He can be one of the most elite damaging ball players, ball runners, and halves in his time. Obviously, playing hooker now with everyone's kind of available, but I dare say he'll go back to that number 7 jersey. And then for the number 6 jersey for the Broncos, well, I'm not too sure. Who they put in there. Obviously, they put Tony Staggs in there last night. Once these injuries happened, I don't think they put Tony Staggs in there. I think they go to someone else in their squad. Obviously, we've seen Josh Rogers come in to the team previously. I don't think we've seen much of him this season so far for the Broncos in the top squad. But yeah, I think it's Ben Hunt to 7, and then that 6, I guess, kind of we see, what happens with the Broncos. Obviously, Selwyn Cobbo, done his hamstring with just a couple minutes to go in the game as well, which is very unfortunate. Didn't look looked in a bit of discomfort, Selwyn Cobbo, at moments throughout the game. I'm not sure whether it was a knee or something that was nagging him, but it looks like he's going to be set to miss a couple of weeks, and obviously they'll miss him as well. But for me, that was the number one biggest takeaway out of this game. The second one was the Storm. The Storm win 22-2, and to me, look, I don't think the Storm have been playing their best at the moment. I feel like they're cruising along, they're coasting along, and they're probably going a little bit under the radar. But like, the thing with the Storm is, like, they're going to be there or thereabouts at the end of the season. And it just, to me, it is absolutely crazy. This team, Craig Bellamy gets his team consistently in the top 4 year in, year out, like every single year. Like, these guys, it's just like, oh, they're in the top 4 again. It's like, it's normal for them to be in the top 4. That is an unbelievable high-performing team. And Craig Bellamy, I mean, I haven't seen him probably be happy in the coach's box for, I don't know. Maybe, remember earlier in the season when Harry Grant wasn't playing, he was injured, and he was like telling him to smile. But I haven't seen him kind of happy for a long time in the box. So I think it'd be interesting to be in those meetings with Craig Bellamy. What's he like, his approach. I've been a huge admirer of Craig Bellamy for a long time. I love the way he goes about his business, obviously very successfully. In my opinion, I think he's the most successful coach or the best coach of all time. And that's a pretty big statement, but that's how much respect I have for Craig Bellamy. I just think, he's an absolute weapon. He's shown what he can do with players who obviously go down to Melbourne and then turn their careers around or get an opportunity and then they just stay at Melbourne. They don't leave. And the thing with Melbourne is if you come to Melbourne and you rip into Melbourne and you have a go, then you actually get looked after and you stay as one of them. So I love that about Melbourne. But obviously with the Storm, Jerome Hughes obviously succumbed to that shoulder injury a couple of weeks ago. And I think he's scheduled to be back finals time or maybe just before finals time. But it's interesting to note the dynamic of the Storm and how they're playing at the moment with Jerome Hughes. Now they're obviously starting Wishart at 7 and then keeping Jonah Pezzett on the bench. And then Tyron Wishart seems to move to lock when Pezzett comes on. And Pezzett last night, he played 29 minutes, Jonah Pezzett. Tyron Wishart played 69. That obviously takes a couple of minutes off Trent Liera. He finished with 68 minutes. So that dynamic is an interesting one. Obviously the halves, you don't really see teams really changing their halves, mid-game too often. Obviously that's the benefit of having someone like Harry Grant who can play full 80 minutes and do that, relatively easy. So, look, the dynamic will be interesting. I mean, obviously, Jerome Hughes is scheduled to be back for finals. If he wasn't scheduled to be back then, would the Storm take this ploy, or this strategy into the final series? I don't actually think they would. I'm not sure if they would, to be honest. I think they might go with a kind of a different plan, but obviously that won't need to happen because Hughes is scheduled to be back before then anyway. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Look, for Pezzett, he's at that time now where I think obviously Jerome Hughes is just re-signed with the Storm and he is looking to get more of a role within the NRL or take reins of his own team. Now, it'll be interesting to see, I said on the podcast earlier in the week, whether he stays at Melbourne or whether he, goes to try and take on his own team and more of a role. But for next year, it's like, well, a lot of teams already have their halfbacks for next season. So, will it be for next year or will it be for the year after? But I think there's no doubt this guy is ready for more responsibility. And that's the next challenge for him, to move to a team where it's like you're the starter week in, week out and really take on that role. So, look, an interesting dynamic. Look, the thing I love with Tyron Wishart is he's a gun. He can fill in everywhere. And he has had a tremendous last 2 seasons. Last night he ran for just the 76 metres. He's usually a bit more than that. Obviously, he's a runner of the ball. Got a great dummy on him as well. And that dynamic for the Storm, yeah, look, it's working at the moment, but I don't feel the Storm are playing their best right now. They scored 22-2 last night, and they had a lot of good performances, which we'll just touch on next. But I still think they've got a stack of improvement in them. And obviously, this time of year, just after round 20, before round 27, some teams go through a little bit of a lull. After being so high for so long. The season is, in my opinion, the season's too long. And this is the bit where it's like, oh man, there's still 5 weeks to go before finals. So it's a long season and you can't sort of blame teams that maybe have, a drop in performance. But the sign of a good team is when a team does not play their best, but they still win. Because at the end of the day, when we look at the win-loss column, it's either W or an L, and it does not matter how you get that result, but you get the W and you basically just move on. And obviously this team have a lot bigger fish to fry in front of them with the Storm. Let's move on to the top running meters. Number three takeaway for from this game last night. The top meters for both teams. Well, Ryan Pappenhausen, 223 meters for the Melbourne Storm. Puppy, he got sacked from goal kicking from last week, but brought his running bits. I thought he was dynamic last night. He scored a try as well. Yeah, he made 2 tackles. Man, it'd be great to make 2 tackles in a game. Can you imagine that? I mean, I would like to see the GPS on Ryan Pappenhausen. He would have covered a lot of Ks last night. Obviously, the legs would be more sore than the shoulders, but can you just imagine telling someone, hey, you just got, make 2 tackles in the whole game? That's crazy. 22 run meters. 22 runs. Little Pappenhausen had for 223 meters. Compared to, I guess, the all run meters, the back three run meters across both teams. Well, this is pretty much double. Melbourne had 623 run meters from their back three, and Brisbane had 398. So Melbourne getting considerably more out of their back three with that regard. Obviously, that's Xavier Coates, Grant Anderson, Ryan Pappenhausen, against Reece Walsh, Selwyn Cobbo, and Dean Mariner. Now, for the Broncos, well, Selwyn Cobbo, he topped the run meters for the Broncos, 147 meters for Cobbo, and then Jordan Ricky, 161 meters. Actually, sorry, Cobbo and Ricky were both 161. So a big effort from Cobbo and Jordan Ricky. Payne Haas, believe it or not in the top two, 152. So Storm did a relatively good job at stopping Payne Haas. Obviously, if you stop Payne Haas, you go a long way to kind of stopping the Broncos. He's such a dynamic player, one of my favourite players in the whole competition at the front row position. And yeah, they were the leaders in the run meters. Number 4, let's have a look at the Storm and Broncos errors and completion in this game. Just looking at the stats. All these stats are per NRL.com. So this is where we're getting all our stats from for today's podcast. Now, the Storm had 13 errors and completed at 72%. Now, if you've heard me talk on the podcast before, you kind of hear me speak about kind of these benchmarks that are in these positions. So if you're looking, errors you probably kind of want under 10, and you want a completion rate above 80%. Usually, you see teams complete above 80 and lose. That's usually, if both teams are above 80, it's generally a really high quality game. But if you see under 80%, then Storm had 72%. They'll obviously, like I said, they didn't play their best, but they'll still take the result and the win. They want to get above 80. Above 80, you control the ball. And in our game, if you control the ball, you control the game. And more often than not, you win the game. So control the ball, control the game. And then for the Broncos, well, this doesn't read well for them. They made 16 errors on the night, which is not great. Way too many errors for them, which then forces them to make more tackles. And that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to be making more tackles than your opposition, and they completed at 62%. So 62% is not great. You want to be above 80, like I said, and that will definitely, contribute as to the reasons why they lost the game. And when they do their video review this week, obviously those numbers they'll probably have a look at, and their coaching staff will come up with ways and things that they think that what they need to do to improve the aspect of their ball control to put pressure on the opposition. Because at the moment, in the game last night, by making those errors, by making 16 errors, it gives basically the Broncos 16 more chances with the ball to attack them. So let's have a quick look if we can find some of the error. Just going through the stats here on the sheet. So you made some errors for the Broncos. Just bear with me a second. I'm just scrolling through this big document that basically has numbers absolutely everywhere. Here we go. All right, errors. Reece Walsh, 3 errors. Dean Mariner, 3 errors. Katoni Staggs, 2 errors. And yeah, so obviously, you want to sort of cut those errors. Obviously, they're probably some of those errors are, back 5, back 3 tend to be up there with the most errors. Obviously, under the high ball, contested kicks are very hard. And sometimes, you don't blame those guys for the errors because they're extremely hard. But obviously, you just want to go up and attack the ball and commit, and then, whatever happens. So let's move on to the last and probably biggest takeaway for me watching this game is the form of Harry Grant at the moment. Man, this guy is, to me, I feel like he's on another level. He has improved this year, in my opinion, the way that he's playing. Some of his performances over the past couple of weeks, I thought he was excellent last night. Harry Grant, he ran for 121 metres from dummy half, and a lot of that was early on. He was scheming early on, and I feel like this is one of the biggest strengths of the Melbourne Storm team is that when they get on a roll, they get a good play the ball, a fast play the ball. Harry Grant is just like over the advantage line. He's running the ball and he's just coming at you. And if you sort of tighten your defensive line in, he'll come in and then he'll scheme across field. And then if someone's in support, he'll like either hit them short or he'll show, and he'll dummy himself and go through. And like it's easy for a defensive preview to say like, hey, no shows on Harry Grant. But when you're under fatigue and you got a quick ruck and you're on your heels and you haven't been able to move off the line against Harry Grant, like that is really, really scary prospect to come up against. Harry finished with, like I said, 121 metres run with the ball. He had 1 try assist. He had 2 line break assists and 1 line break. So he is absolutely on fire at the moment. And I feel like, Cameron Smith was inducted into the Australian Sports Hall of Fame during the week. And I was just thinking to myself, like, Cameron Smith, like, retired, and then you just bring in a guy like Harry Grant to replace him, he's now obviously the state of origin hooker. He's the Australian hooker. And, Cameron Smith's career will never be repeated. Like, he'll be one of the GOATs to go down in history. But then you just put in a guy like Harry Grant, like, man, it is crazy. And obviously, yeah, like I said earlier, he plays 80 minutes each and every week. He is the captain of the team. He leads by example. He's extremely tough. You watch some of his line speed efforts as well, some of his ability to get off the line and get in the opposition's face in defense. So it obviously speaks volumes about his fitness and his durability. Like, hasn't spent too much time on the sidelines through injury, and yeah, I think he's going to be a massive part of this Melbourne Storm team come towards the end of the season if they are to push for a grand final spot. And you say that kind of every year, don't you? With the Melbourne Storm, it just would not surprise you if they are there or thereabouts come the end of the season. So that's it, guys. Look, Friday 5, my 5 biggest takeaways from last night's game. I just wanted to jump on today and try something different. And let me know if you guys enjoyed this. This is something I obviously really do enjoy. So if you like today's little Friday 5, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. You like the video. You rate and review us on the audio platforms. It is greatly appreciated. And we'll see you guys next time. Let's go.